Chapter 6. Claire double-checked the clock on her phone. 6:58 p.m. The evening meds were already lined up on a clean, folded dish towel. The ritual continued. 7 different bottles, each a quiet reminder that Autumn's life, day after day, hinged on such imprecise and uncertain tools. They didn't have one of those fancy pill organizers. Every purchase had to be weighed against the utility bills or gas in the Bronco. Or the internet bill, she reminded herself grimly. Autumn sat in her wheelchair by the living room window, tapping idly on her speech assistance device. Outside was thick with creeping early winter darkness, the reflection of dimly lit living room bouncing back off the glass. Claire felt a small twinge. She had wanted to pay the internet bill tomorrow, knowing day 3 is when they shut it off, but her bank account was already overdrawn. She sighed, blinking. Let future Claire worry about it. "All right," she announced softly. "Let's get these meds out of the way." Autumn turned and stared blankly. She nodded once, a resigned acceptance. The device's mechanical voice said, "Evening poison, right?" in a flat, tinny tone. The ritual started with pregabalin. She twisted off the childproof cap, then a second pill, duloxetine, followed by half a tablet of cyclobenzaprine for muscle spasms and to help with sleep, ondansetron for nausea, and prazosin for nightmares from complex PTSD. Autumn's eyes flicked in a way that they did whenever she dreaded the cough suppressant. That was kindly or strategically saved for last. "Your favorite's still coming," she teased gently, trying to lighten the mood. Autumn sighed, cruel, and crossed her arms while making an exaggerated grumpy face. One by one, she swallowed them down. Pregabalin, duloxetine, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, ondansetron, prazosin. The cough suppressant was last, thick, syrupy, and reeking of menthol. She made a face, but gulped it back, shuddering. "There," Claire declared, relieved. "Done for tonight." Autumn typed on her device. "Do I look fat?" It was that time of the day for Autumn. It could be on a schedule, it was so reliable. She would fixate on her appearance and lift her shirt to reveal her stomach and ask the same question. "You look great, but even if you were gaining weight, that's not what you need to be worrying about right now. Also, your weight doesn't determine how worthy you are of your own love or the love of others." Claire caught a worried glint in Autumn's eyes and exhaled. She could tell her friend felt lousy and exhausted from coughing all day. Her shoulders slumped from the weight of her illness. Claire pressed a hand on Autumn's blanket in a small attempt at comfort. "At least you look pretty," Claire blurted, half teasing. "You know, you could be healthy and unfortunate looking, but I think you'd choose pretty and sick over that, wouldn't you?" The two giggled and enjoyed a moment of relief. Then Autumn started typing, and the robotic voice scratched. "I cried the first 3 months I was born. My parents didn't sleep a wink." The tone shift was so sudden that Claire didn't know how to respond. "Wow," she murmured, easing herself onto the couch's arm. She had no idea where Autumn was going with that, but the random choice to share was clearly a way of opening up. She kept going. "Dad said we were all cursed. He had schizophrenia and was a diagnosed psychopath." Another string of keystrokes. "I've done a lot of bad things, Claire. Am I a bad person?" Claire felt a tender pang. She brushed a loose strand of purple hair from Autumn's forehead. "We choose our own path, Autumn. You're kind and funny, and I feel so lucky to know you. That's who you are and who you choose to be every day." Autumn's gaze flicked up, a small smile forming. Then her fingers hovered over the keys a moment before typing. "How'd you become who you are?" The question caught Claire off guard. She rubbed the back of her neck, feeling the weight of it all. "I guess it was a lot of trial by fire. My father's fanatic grief, losing Yelena, trying to do it all on my own. Meeting Kyle, then meeting you." She paused, clearing her throat. "All of that shapes me. Some days I'm the sculptor, other days I'm just the lump of clay. But hey, we have a lot to be grateful for, right?" She attempted a short laugh, ignoring the heaviness lodged in her chest. The quiet in the living room felt oddly charged, sad but not hopeless. Claire offered a faint grin. "Anyway, if you're up for something later, maybe we can do some music before bed." Without waiting for a response, she began tidying around the room. If a simple compliment and a strange philosophical chat could momentarily brighten the mood, she would lean into that. "Let's do something fun," she said abruptly, feeling herself slip on the mask of someone who she refers to as Claire the Entertainer, at least when talking to the therapist she could no longer afford. She glanced around the cramped living room, eyes settling on a battered black case leaning against the bookshelf. What if we make some music? We haven't done that in ages. Autumn's face brightened, and she started clapping her hands in front of her while making a noise sounding like yee. She signed, Concertina? Mandolin? Claire nodded, swallowing a small surge of nerves. She had nearly forgotten how to tune that old mandolin properly, but here we go. Why not? Let's have at it. Autumn maneuvered her chair closer to a stool, holding an Anglo concertina, a curious hexagonal squeeze box with bellows that were scuffed from countless moves. On each end sat rows of small buttons, their metal gleamed dull by time and use. The concertina's size might seem modest, but when the bellows compressed and expanded, its reeds produced a bright timbre that was both haunting and sweet, especially in the intimacy of a cramped living room. Unlike a piano accordion with a keyboard, an Anglo concertina used push-pull action to create different pitches, lending it a lively, almost lilting quality. In Autumn's hands, the subtle change in bellows pressure shaped each note, turning what looked like a humble box of wood and leather into a magical, resonant instrument. Meanwhile, Claire rummaged for her mandolin case, flipping open the latches. Dust clung to the strings, so she wiped them down with the edge of her shirt. I'm probably rusty, she warned, a breathy laugh escaping. My calluses are basically gone. Autumn's lips quirked in that lopsided grin. She tapped her device, and the robotic voice said, Better than my squeaks. Let's do it. Claire plucked a few chords, tuning by ear. She recognized an old folk progression. G, C, D, the standard circle. Over by the window, Autumn tested the bellows, pressing the keys. A wave of reedy notes rippled out, sounding both nostalgic and a little forlorn. Claire exhaled, letting her shoulders relax. Music could take her away for a bit, and she enjoyed the company she was with for that journey. They launched into a halting attempt at an old Scottish folk melody, which she half remembered from her college days. The first measures were clumsy. Claire's fingers stumbled, and Autumn paused to adjust her angle. But then the melody caught, and the concertina's whimsical hum filled the living room. Claire joined in softly, singing a near-wordless tune that matched the chord changes. For those few minutes, the tone in the house shifted from oppressive to warm, a quiet stage for two battered souls. The lamplight cast long shadows on the walls, but it felt companionable rather than frightening. Claire sensed the tension and discomfort in Autumn's posture melt as she pressed the bellows, letting the notes resonate. They repeated the tune a second time, more confidently. Claire's voice rose, blending with the mandolin's bright strums. She chanced a glance at Autumn, who locked eyes and offered a small nod of approval. With each chord progression, the swirling negativity receded into a fleeting pocket of peace. When they finished, both of them let the last chord linger. If she let herself, Claire could almost pretend they were in a cozy cabin on some holiday, rather than a cramped, half-heated home. She grinned and set the mandolin across her lap. Autumn's eyes shone. She typed, You can sing real words next time. You have a pretty voice. She felt ease rise in her cheeks. Thank you. Didn't want to butcher real lyrics. She noticed a faint sparkle in her friend's expression, a rare delight shining through. Another swirl of gratitude. They might be living in survival mode, but they still have moments worth holding on to. Claire wondered if there was a magical ratio or mathematical equation of how much suffering a human spirit can endure in comparison to how many moments of beauty that spirit can inhabit. They might have played another tune, but a wave of coughing from Autumn ended the lull. She doubled over, concertina slipping from her hands. Claire jumped forward, supporting her friend. The fit was aggressive but passed quickly, yet it reminded her of how fragile everything was. All right, she said gently. Maybe we pace ourselves. We can do more tomorrow, yeah? Autumn nodded, signing, Thank you, with shaky fingers. She found herself longing for the simpler illusion that a bit of music could ward off the monstrous world. But as she set the instrument aside, the hush seemed to creep in again, a cold and watchful quiet. She glimpsed the time, 7:49 p.m. The phone sat on the coffee table, screen black. A small part of her braced for an overdue notice, text, or call from Kyle, but all remained silent, which felt equally nerve-wracking. She made her way to the kitchen and ended up gripping the edge of the counter. She could feel the weight of everything and her inability to resolve it all. The bills, her father, Autumn's health. Maybe she would call Kyle in the morning and ask to borrow some money. The thought sent a pang of dread through her. He was the last person she wanted to rely on. When you asked for his help, he would provide it. Then it would be added to his little mental list of things to guilt-trip her about when they got in an argument. Still, these were desperate times. She picked up a glass jar of pickles that had been sitting on the counter for a week since she last went grocery shopping, taunting her with 100 other items that she needed to put away. A sharp rap on the window made her jolt. She dropped the jar and it shattered. Her heart hammered. She spun around and saw nothing. Outside, darkness clung to the yard, illuminated only by a weak street lamp. Possibly a branch scratching the glass. Claire's hand shook as she reached for the broom. It's just the wind, she told herself, though the sense of a presence prickled under her skin. Claire decided she didn't feel like cleaning up the pickle mess right now, so she microwaved some soup for Autumn. Thankfully, her boots could easily crunch over the shattered mason jar. Returning to the living room, she found Autumn massaging her temples. She laid the bowl on a side table. You okay? Autumn typed. Slight headache. Maybe. Meds? They shared a subdued moment as Autumn was fed small spoonfuls of soup. It was lukewarm and watery, but Autumn managed a few mouthfuls without immediately retching. A small victory. The caregiver part of Claire's brain noted the details. Half a cup consumed. Maybe that would work. She set the bowl down. That's probably enough for now, she murmured. Don't push it. Autumn nodded, weary lines etched under her eyes. Her device beeped with a low battery warning, so she flicked it off to conserve power. For a minute, the hush in the room felt comfortable with the flicker of lamplight and the faint hum of a heating vent. Then a soft thump in the hallway made them both tense. Probably just Don Roberto, Claire whispered, more for her own benefit. She peered down the dim corridor, half expecting to see a crow perched inside or shape-shifting in the shadows. Nothing. She exhaled. I'll check it out. Autumn sighed, scared. A quick survey found the hallway empty except for stacked laundry baskets. She reminded herself to do a load tomorrow if the water didn't get cut off. On returning to the living room, she found Autumn giving her a questioning look. She shrugged. Nothing there, she mouthed. Autumn rubbed her forehead, signing quickly. Read it. It's happening more. Little noises. Shadows. Then she pointed to the battered book lying under the coffee table. Arcana Hermetica. You think it's that? She asked quietly, retrieving the book. The swirling sigils on the cover caught the lamplight. Maybe it's just the old pipes or something, or my imagination. Autumn's eyes flicked with a mixture of skepticism and anxiety. She tapped the cover and signed. It says watchers guard threshold. Maybe they watch us too. I read more last night. That's... I don't know. She set the book aside, forcing a grin. We had a nice jam session. Let's not ruin it with flights of imagination, okay? A small beep from her phone on the table. She checked it and saw an automated text from her ISP. Notice. Full service disconnection scheduled tomorrow at 12 p.m. if balance is not paid. She closed her eyes firmly. Damn it. She pressed her lips, tucking the phone away. Looks like the internet's definitely going off tomorrow if I don't pay it, she said, voice hollow. She tried to keep the tension from lacing her words, but was instantly certain she'd failed at that too. That's the real watchers for you, she joked bitterly, ignoring the pang of helplessness. Corporate eyes waiting to cut us off after raising the rates every few months for years. She tried to sound calm, but the words came out shaky. The lamp flickered once, a weak stutter that darkened the room for half a second. Claire was sweating, and her hands felt like they were going numb. She glanced at the overhead fixture, but it settled back to a steady glow. Autumn let out a silent breath, signing, It's okay. She swallowed. Yeah. She knelt, picking up the mandolin from earlier, her fingers brushing the worn strings. You want a short tune before bed? Yes. She brought her friend to the bed and made sure not to grunt or make noises that might make her feel like it was any burden or difficulty to move her. Then she grabbed her mandolin and strummed a gentle chord progression. Just a simple melody, a grounding note. Autumn closed her eyes, leaning into her pillow. This time she didn't attempt lyrics, just hummed softly, letting the tune fill the spaces between them. The fear receded for a few beats, replaced by a fragile sense of calm. When the final note died, Claire felt the weight of the day return. The weird sounds, Autumn's pain and exhaustion, the internet about to be cut off, Kyle's needy texts and calls, and the ongoing lack of progress in what felt like a case of urgent medical necessity. She forced a last smile, placing the mandolin aside. Enough for tonight, she whispered. Sleep and ring your bell if you need me. Autumn nodded, signing, Thank you, again. Claire flicked off the overhead lamp. A chill draft slid under the door, raising goosebumps on Claire's arms. She reminded herself to check the window seals if they still had lights tomorrow. She put Autumn's big socks on her feet and laid her weighted blanket on top of her. She then trudged to her own bedroom, phone clutched in her sweaty palm. Don Roberto trotted by, big tail waving like a feather duster. He meowed once, then flopped on the hallway rug for a lazy roll. A text from Kyle flashed. Do you even love me? If you keep ghosting me, we're done. She saw the one before it too, an earlier rant about his boss writing him all day, about he was the only one trying in their relationship. He wrote, I need some emotional support sometimes. Can't you at least text me back? Why am I always giving 100%? But Claire ignored it, knowing he was full of empty ultimatums. She exhaled, stepping into her room. Her exhaustion and stress had one benefit. Sleep generally wrapped her like a warm blanket on a cold night. Just as Claire turned off the light, her phone vibrated again, lighting up the darkness with its glow. The screen read Dad, and her pulse spiked. She let it ring, dread coiling in her stomach. No voicemail this time, just insistent buzzing. When it finally stopped, the hush that followed felt unnatural, like a held breath that couldn't be released. Claire slipped the phone under her pillow, determined to ignore the weight of that new message for at least one night. As she lay there, fully awake, trying to pretend herself to sleep, the phone under her pillow buzzed. A static pulse so quick she almost dismissed it. A faint, whispery crackle teased at the edges of her hearing. She clenched her eyes shut, refusing to give in to the fear. For now, she had none left to give.